The monastic day began in the pitch black of night with matins. When the heavy convent bells shattered the silence, the nuns were forced to leave their cold dormitory beds. They walked into the freezing chapel to chant the night offices in the dark, keeping watch and praying for the soul of the world while the rest of Europe slept. Directly following matins, or arriving just as the first light broke the horizon, came lauds, known as the office of praise. This service celebrated the rising sun as a symbol of resurrection. The nuns sing psalms of thanksgiving before finally being allowed to return to their rooms for a few final hours of rest. Waking again at 6 a.m. for prime, the nuns washed up and ate a very simple breakfast, often consisting of just basic bread and ale. Because medieval water supplies were frequently contaminated and unsafe, the natural fermentation process made brewing a mild beer the healthiest and safest way for the community to stay hydrated every morning. Following the 9 a.m. prayer for Tours, the convent began its daily labor. For educated choir nuns from wealthy families, this time was dedicated to scholarship, translation, and illuminating priceless manuscripts. Meanwhile, lay sisters performed the heavy physical work, tending to livestock, cooking in the kitchens, and caring for the sick in the infirmary.
At noon, the bells rang for sext, which was immediately followed by the main meal of the day. However, socialization was strictly forbidden. The meal was consumed in mandatory silence. While the sisters ate, one designated nun stood at a podium reading scripture aloud, ensuring they nourished their spirits alongside their bodies.
At 3 p.m., the community paused their chores once again to gather for the afternoon service of Non. This prayer marked the standard midpoint of the afternoon. After the brief service concluded, the nuns returned to their respective stations to finish up their manual labor, farming, and daily maintenance of the estate.
As dusk fell, the community gathered for Vespers, the evening prayer service. This was often the most musical and solemn service of the entire day, featuring complex, beautiful choral chanting in perfect harmony. Afterward, the nuns shared a very simple, light evening supper before the daylight faded completely from the sky.
The structured day concluded with Compline, the final prayer before bed. Immediately afterward, the nuns retired to the communal dormitory, initiating the Great Silence, where absolutely no speaking was permitted. The monastery fell completely dark, its residents resting until the midnight bells rang to repeat the entire sacred cycle all over again.
It is 2 o'clock in the morning, and the heavy monastery bells breaks the freezing night. The monk rolls out of bed, already wearing his rough woolen habit to save time. He shivers through the dark stone halls to the abbey church for matins. For the next 2 hours, the monks chant by candlelight, praying for the world while it sleeps. Just a few hours later, dawn breaks, bringing the service of lauds. This morning prayer is a celebration of light and life. There is no breakfast or coffee waiting for them. Instead, the monks wash quickly with cold water to wake up, head straight back to the chapel, and sing praises as the sun rises. At 6 a.m., the bell rings for prime, followed immediately by the daily meeting in the chapter house. Here, tasks are assigned, and the community's business is settled. It is also a time for public confession. If a monk fell asleep during the night prayers, he must openly confess his fault and accept his punishment. By 9 a.m., the service of Tours marks the official transition into the workday. Following a short prayer, the famous Benedictine rule of pray and work kicks into high gear. Educated monks file into the scriptorium to painstakingly copy manuscripts by hand, while others prepare the tools needed for heavy manual labor. Noon brings sext and the long-awaited meal in the dining hall. But this is no social lunch hour. The monks eat in absolute silence, using an intricate system of sign language to pass the bread or water. Meanwhile, a single monk stands at a pulpit reading scripture aloud so their minds are fed alongside their bodies. At 3 p.m., the bell for nun calls them to a brief prayer before they return to their chores. Monasteries must be completely self-sufficient. Monks plow fields, harvest crops, and tend to the sick in the infirmary and bake bread. Idleness is viewed as an invitation to sin, so every able body stays moving until dusk. As evening approaches around 5 p.m., the workday finally ends with Vespers. This is one of the most important and beautiful services of the day, featuring solemn evening hymns. The monks give thanks for the day's provisions and work before heading back to the dining hall for a very light evening supper. By 7 p.m., the final service of Compline begins. Afterward, the abbot blesses each monk with holy water, and the great silence takes effect. No speaking is permitted until tomorrow. The monks lie down on simple straw beds. In just 7 hours, the bells will ring again, and the cycle restarts.